AITA for canceling the wedding and billing my ex-fiancée $105,000 after she dumped me via text. My best friend, Caleb, 34, works in commercial construction and has absolutely no filter when it comes to his opinions on my life choices. When I told him I was starting a supply chain consulting firm, he said, word for word, "Bro, you're going to advise people on how to be broke because that's the only thing you've mastered right now." Coming from a guy who once used duct tape to fix a shattered truck window, that stung more than I wanted to admit. But about 2 years ago, everything clicked. I landed huge contracts with major logistics companies. Apparently, optimizing distribution networks pays extremely well. Caleb's reaction to my first big bonus check was typical. "Well, maybe you aren't useless after all. Don't let it go to your head, Einstein." Now, I make seriously good money. The kind of money where I don't even look at the price of gas anymore. Enough to finally buy my own place in the suburbs, adopt my dog, Buster, and finish the project Caleb and I had been working on for 3 years, restoring a 1967 Chevy Impala. We found it rusting in someone's backyard in Ohio, and Caleb convinced me we could bring it back to life. That car became our weekend therapy. Nothing strengthens the bond between two emotionally reserved American men like inhaling primer fumes and arguing over torque specs. Caleb handled the bodywork. I obsessively focused on the engine build. It took us almost 4 years, but now she is absolutely perfect. Midnight blue paint, chrome bumpers, and a 327 small block engine that purrs like a very large, very angry lion. Buster is a golden retriever who is about as smart as a bag of hammers, but twice as lovable. The rescue shelter said he was spirited and needed someone patient. Apparently, spirited meant he once got his head stuck in a cereal box and simply accepted his fate, walking into walls instead of backing out. Honestly, same. That dog and I share a single brain cell, and it is often on a lunch break. I met my ex-fiancée, Jessica, 28, 6 years ago. She was working as a receptionist at a stuffy corporate law firm downtown, but dreamed of becoming an art curator. She knew everything about the Hudson River School painters, could talk for hours about gallery lighting, and had a whole vision for a career in prestigious museums. The problem was that dreams don't pay off federal student loans. Back then, she was incredible, smart, passionate, and able to get me interested in the brushwork of long-dead artists when my definition of culture was limited to reruns of Seinfeld. When I first introduced Jessica to Caleb, he pulled me aside near the cooler and said, "She's way out of your league." What's the catch? Classic Caleb. Buster, on the other hand, loved her immediately because she gave him half her turkey sub without him even having to beg. But here is where the situation gets complex. About a year into our relationship, I offered her a deal. Quit the soul-crushing reception job. Focus on her art history degree. Take the unpaid internships at the city museums. Network like crazy. I would handle the household finances. Here is the key point. I wasn't just some generous benefactor. I am a businessman. When I invest in a venture, I document everything. Every major expense, every tuition payment, and every career opportunity one funded was covered by a promissory note that she signed. Nothing predatory, just simple contracts stating the principal amounts and repayment terms. Honestly, it was less about trust and more about not ending up like those guys on legal advice forums who paid for their ex's nursing degree only to get dumped at graduation. She signed everything without even reading the fine print. "It's just paperwork, babe. We're going to be married anyway." She found it cute that I was making our partnership official. Some people write poetry. I wrote legally binding contracts with fixed interest rates. This is where one of the main antagonists in this disaster enters the scene. Sloan, Jessica's best friend. Yes, that is her real name. And yes, she is exactly what you would imagine. Dyed hair, nose piercing, the type of person who uses academic buzzwords in casual conversation. Sloan was getting her master's degree in sociology and had a strong opinion on everything, especially men and economics. She disliked me from day one, not because I was a bad person, but because in her worldview, any successful man was automatically part of the oppressive structure. During group dinners at upscale bistros, she would make passive-aggressive remarks about wealth disparity and privilege, all while ordering the filet mignon, which I, of course, paid for. Caleb met Sloan only once at a barbecue. His verdict, That girl has more red flags than a hazardous waste site. The most ironic part? Sloane lived in a luxury condo paid for by her parents in Connecticut while she pursued her academic passion. But somehow, I was the villain for supporting my fiancé's dreams. We got engaged last year, after 5 years together. I proposed at a gallery opening she had been looking forward to for months. I had the ring custom-made with a sapphire because she said diamonds were too suburban. It cost me $15,000, but seeing her face was worth every cent. Sloane's reaction to our engagement was predictable. I hope you know what you're signing up for, Jessica. Marriage is an antiquated institution designed to limit women's agency. Caleb's take on the ring was different. 15 grand for a rock? I could buy a used F-150 for that. But hey, at least you have an asset to liquidate if this goes south. For 6 years, I built what I thought was our future together. Once Jessica quit her job, she fully embraced the new lifestyle. First, there was the apartment issue. Her studio was cramped, according to her. So, I found an incredible downtown loft. Exposed brick, industrial windows, the whole package. It was $3,200 a month. The check for the security deposit and the first year's rent totaled $25,000. Caleb helped me move in the heavy furniture, and his comment, while carrying a $3,000 designer coffee table, was memorable. This table costs more than my tools, and my tools actually build things. Buster was fascinated by the new apartment, mostly because he kept trying to fetch his tennis ball off the brick walls, confused as to why it wouldn't bounce back. Then came the vehicle. I can't show up to donor events taking the subway, she would say. Valid point. We leased her a BMW X3. The monthly payment was $580. Another loan contract, since she had no credit history to speak of. I co-signed the lease. That was $15,000 over the life of the term. Caleb's reaction when he saw the BMW in the driveway was sharp. Nice ride. Too bad she'll probably curb the wheels at a Starbucks drive-thru while texting about her artistic vision. The funniest part is that she always complained about my Impala taking up space in the building's garage. It's just an old car, she'd say. Why don't you sell it for a Tesla or something practical? That should have been a warning sign. Next was the wardrobe upgrade. In the high-end art world, appearance is currency. So, I gave her a $1,500 monthly clothing allowance. Nordstrom, Saks Fifth Avenue, boutiques that sold $300 silk scarves. Over 6 years, that was probably $40,000 in clothes and accessories. The education expenses were the highest. Masters in art history, specialized seminars, conferences in New York and Chicago. It was $35,000 total, all documented and signed for. Sloane was a constant presence during all of this, and her commentary was relentless. She would come over to Jessica's luxury apartment and lecture me on income inequality and how it was problematic that I had disposable income while others struggled. When I told Caleb about Sloane's visits, he was incredulous. Wait, let me get this straight. She comes to the apartment you pay for, eats the organic food you bought, uses the high-speed fiber internet you fund, and then lectures you about money? That's gold medal audacity. When I pointed out that her parents were literally funding her entire graduate education and housing, she replied that it was completely different because it was intergenerational wealth transfer, not a transactional power dynamic. Jessica's sister, Courtney, was just as difficult, but in a different way. 2 years older than Jessica and even more entitled, Courtney worked some vague job at a startup that sold overpriced wellness candles, but she acted like she was the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. Caleb met her once at Thanksgiving. His verdict: that one thinks she's the star of a reality show. I bet she sends her food back at Applebee's. But Courtney didn't just comment. She also asked for handouts. Since you're already paying for Jessica's BMW, could you help me with my car note? Just until our series of funding comes through. I always said no, which would trigger lectures from Sloane about toxic gatekeeping of resources. Jessica's lifestyle was intense. All organic groceries from Whole Foods. Art supplies from specialty importers. A membership at an Equinox gym with a spa and eucalyptus towels. Meal kit deliveries that cost more than most families' weekly grocery budgets. Weekend trips to Art Basel and other expos. Always flying Delta Comfort, or better, always in boutique hotels. Sloane sometimes tagged along on these trips on my dime. For 5.5 years, it worked. Jessica was building her network, gaining experience, getting closer to her dream curator role. Sloane kept poisoning the well with her theories, but I thought it was just background noise. Looking back, I realized Sloane was probably in Jessica's ear the whole time, telling her she deserved better and that I was using financial support to stifle her independence. Tuesday was supposed to be a landmark day, the 6-year anniversary of our first date, and I had everything planned. Reservations at a Michelin-starred restaurant she had wanted to try for months, the kind of place where you need an Amex Platinum concierge just to get a table. I had also bought a stunning sapphire bracelet to match her engagement ring. I spent 3 hours at the jeweler picking it out. I left the office early, around 4 in the afternoon, to surprise her. Maybe grab a latte, talk about the house we were looking at, just spend some time together before dinner. I got to the loft. She wasn't there. No big deal. Probably at a gallery walkthrough or meeting with her thesis advisor. I decided to wait. At 7:30 in the evening, my phone buzzed. A text from Jessica. I found someone else. I don't want anything to do with you anymore. Don't contact me. A single text. 6 years, thousands of dollars, a custom engagement ring, a future plan together. All ended with a text shorter than a grocery list. I just sat there, staring at my iPhone for a full 15 minutes. My first instinct was to call immediately, to demand an explanation. Who was this other guy? How long had this been going on? What about the wedding, the deposits? Then my consultant brain kicked in. Her message was crystal clear. Don't want anything to do with you, and don't contact me, didn't mean a break. It meant a termination of the partnership. So I replied, as you wish. I immediately called Caleb. Bro, I need to crash at your place tonight. What happened? I read him the text. Long silence on the line. After 6 years and all that cash, she dumps you via text? You just dodged a bullet the size of a cannonball, man. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb, opened my MacBook, and did what I do best, solve a complex logistical problem. I wasn't just hurt. I was about to become her worst administrative nightmare. I wasn't a superhero. I was a man with a spreadsheet and receipts. This is where my professional experience really paid off. When you run a consulting firm, you learn to separate emotion from execution. This was just another project to be audited and closed out. Priority number 1, the credit cards. I logged into my Chase and Amex accounts and removed Jessica as an authorized user on both cards. Immediate deactivation. The cards in her wallet were now just expensive scrap plastic. Next, the BMW. The payment was due in 4 days. I canceled the autopay. It was up to her to figure out how to pay the $580 a month or deal with the repo man. Since I had co-signed, the bank would eventually call me, but I would cross that bridge when I got there. The loft lease was entirely in my name, since she didn't have the credit score for it. I found the early termination clause, 60 days notice plus a 2-month penalty fee. I drafted a formal termination email to the property management group and sent it off, time-stamped. All the subscriptions and services, Netflix, Hulu, Spotify Family Plan, the Equinox membership, the Blue Apron deliveries, the recurring art supply orders. I changed the passwords and canceled everything. Her phone line on my Verizon Family Plan. Disconnect process initiated. Next priority, the wedding. The date was set for October, venue booked, caterer confirmed, photographer paid. I called every single vendor and canceled. I lost nearly $18,000 in non-refundable deposits. But that was still cheaper than the $45,000 it would have cost to actually marry someone who wanted nothing to do with me. Caleb helped me with some of the calls. After the one with the florist, he said, 18 grand down the drain. At least you aren't paying for a divorce lawyer. The engagement ring was trickier. The $15,000 custom sapphire was legally mine until the wedding actually occurred. A conditional gift, according to state law. I called my lawyer, Mr. Henderson, first thing in the morning. Simple, Henderson said. An engagement ring is a conditional gift in this state. No marriage. The condition isn't met. The gift returns to the giver. You are well within your legal rights to demand it back. I sent Jessica a formal letter requesting the immediate return of the ring. Her response was predictable. You gave it to me. It's mine. I'm not giving back something that represented your commitment. Henderson filed a writ of replevin for the return of property. The judge ruled in our favor within 2 weeks. Jessica had to return the ring or face contempt of court charges. I got my ring back and sold it back to the jeweler for $12,000. Still a loss, but better than letting her pawn it. Then came the masterstroke. I opened my filing cabinet and pulled out every single promissory note Jessica had signed over 6 years. Everything was organized chronologically, complete with payment records and interest calculations. Total amount due, $105,000. I spent 2 hours drafting a formal demand letter, itemizing each loan with dates, amounts, and current balances, including the 6% annual interest as stipulated in the contracts. I attached copies of all signed documents. The letter was professional, cold, and absolutely devastating. I demanded payment in full within 30 days, failing which I would initiate formal collections, including reporting the debt to the credit bureaus and seeking wage garnishment. I sent it via USPS certified mail to the loft. The entire process took about 3 hours. When I was done, I felt a grim satisfaction. Caleb watched me work the whole time from his recliner. His final verdict: "Bro, you just turned a breakup into a corporate liquidation. That's either genius or sociopathic. Probably both." The silence lasted exactly 1 week. I imagined she was enjoying life with her new man, convinced she had successfully upgraded. She was severely mistaken. Friday afternoon, my phone blew up. I guess Nordstrom wasn't prepared for the meltdown of a princess whose card just got declined at the register. Someone must have gotten quite a show. Text after text after text. "What did you do to my cards?" "I'm at the mall and my card was declined." "This is humiliating. You can't just cut someone off like that without warning. We were engaged. I never said I didn't love you anymore. I just needed space to process. You're a vindictive jerk. This is not how adults handle a separation." Then the tone turned downright delusional. "I deserve better than someone who would do this to me. And Tyler says what you're doing is economic abuse. He's going to help me find a lawyer." Tyler, the mysterious someone else. Now I had a name. I didn't reply to any of it. Why would I? She wanted nothing to do with me. I was simply honoring her request. Monday brought the real fireworks. She called me 17 times. 17. I let every single call go to voicemail. The messages went from pleading to confused to completely hysterical. "You're ruining my life. I have commitments, donors expecting me at the gala. My internship director wants to know why I missed the planning meeting. What am I supposed to tell him? Tyler thinks you're breaking the law. Financial coercion is a real crime. My sister says you're just being bitter and punishing me for following my heart." Tuesday afternoon, the green return receipt from the post office came back, confirming delivery of my demand letter. Wednesday morning, my phone rang at 6 in the morning. Unknown number. "You sick psycho," screamed Jessica's voice. $105,000? Are you out of your mind? I hung up and blocked the number. But the real entertainment started Thursday night. I was at Caleb's house when the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole. It was Sloan, holding what looked like a spiral notebook and a pen. Caleb peeked out the window. "It's the green-haired activist. This is going to be good. Let me get the popcorn." I opened the door, and she immediately launched into a clearly rehearsed speech. "I am disgusted with you," she announced, reading from her notebook. "What you are doing to Jessica is a textbook example of financial intimidation and emotional manipulation." I stared at her. "Are you reading that from notes? This isn't a joke. You're destroying a woman's life because your fragile ego can't handle rejection. So, when your parents pay for your condo, your Audi, your iPhone, your Whole Foods runs, your tuition, and your spring break trips to Cabo, it's family support. But when I support my fiancé's professional dreams with documented loans, it's intimidation? Yes, because you're using money to control her agency." I couldn't help but laugh. "Sloan, you literally live in an apartment paid for by your parents in Greenwich. You drive a car they bought you and use a platinum card they pay off. How is that any different from Jessica's situation with me?" "Because my parents don't expect a relationship from me," she shrieked. "Neither do I anymore," I replied calmly. "I expect her to honor the contract she signed." Sloan was practically vibrating with rage. "You think you owned her because you paid for everything?" "No. I think she owes me money because she signed legal documents saying she would pay me back if the relationship ended." Sloan slammed her notebook shut. "This conversation is over. You're too toxic to understand the harm you're causing. But karma is real, and the universe will balance this out." She stormed off to her parents' hand-me-down luxury sedan. I went back inside, and Caleb was grinning from ear to ear. "Dude, That was incredible. She literally brought lecture notes to a doorstep argument. Friday morning, I got an email from Brad Miller, attorney at law, with the subject line, "Urgent, cease and desist harassment of Ms. Jessica Vance." Brad's email was laughably amateurish. Lots of threats about predatory lending practices and bad faith, but zero actual legal citation. He demanded that I immediately cease all collection activities and restore Ms. Vance's access to the funds. I forwarded it to Mr. Henderson, who has handled my business contracts for years. He is the kind of guy who gives off the energy of a shark in a three-piece suit. His response was swift and brutal. He sent Brad copies of every promissory note Jessica had signed, with her signatures clearly visible, along with the bank wire records proving the transfers. His letter essentially said, "Your client signed valid contracts and received real consideration. The debts are legitimate and enforceable in state court." Caleb read Brad's email over my shoulder. This guy calls himself a lawyer? I've seen better legal arguments on Judge Judy. Meanwhile, the consequences were hitting Jessica full force. Her BMW was repossessed from the gallery parking lot during a donor mixer. Apparently, Tyler tried to intervene, telling the repo agents that he was handling the situation and they needed to show some respect. They told him to step aside or be arrested for interference. Jessica had to start taking Ubers everywhere, which was burning through whatever cash Tyler was giving her. Speaking of Tyler, I started doing some digging on him. Turns out he was a mid-level real estate agent who styled himself as a major developer. His Instagram was full of pictures with Ferraris that weren't his, and at construction sites, he was probably just touring during open houses. Classic fake it till you make it. But Tyler was playing the hero role to the hilt. He started making social media posts about controlling men who use money to manipulate women and the need to stand up for justice. Caleb's take on Tyler's Instagram was blunt. "This dude is faker than a $3 bill. Look at this picture. That's not even his watch. It's a knockoff." Sloan was sharing all of Tyler's posts with long captions about toxic masculinity and economic violence. Her Instagram became a daily lecture series on my supposed crimes against society. The best moment came when Jessica's sister, Courtney, decided to get involved. She sent me a long, rambling email about how I was destroying an innocent woman's life and that real men don't abandon their responsibilities. Courtney's email was a masterclass in entitlement. Jessica gave you 6 years of her prime. She supported your career by being the perfect partner. You owe her something for the emotional labor and opportunity cost. I forwarded the email to Caleb. His response was immediate. "Emotional labor? What's next? She's going to bill you for breathing the same air in the living room." But Sloan wasn't done with her activism. She organized what she called a support circle for Jessica, which was basically a group of her sociology program friends who got together to validate each other's narratives. They created a private Facebook group called Survivors of Economic Control, where they shared articles and posted screenshots of my threatening collection letter. The property management company confirmed Jessica's eviction date. She had 30 days to vacate the loft. Tyler was apparently promising to find her something even better, but given his actual financial situation versus his Instagram persona, that seemed unlikely. The real show started on the day she was scheduled to retrieve her things. Like before, I hired professional movers and insisted on Brad's presence to ensure she only took her personal belongings. But this time, Jessica showed up with her entire crew: Tyler, Courtney, Sloan, and some other guy Courtney introduced as her business partner. Sloan showed up with a poster board sign that read, "Financial abuse is real," and started live streaming the whole thing on her phone. Caleb couldn't make it that day. He was on a job site. But when I told him about Sloan's protest sign later, he laughed so hard he choked on his beer. "She made a sign? What is this, a rally?" Moving day was supposed to be simple. Jessica gets her clothes and books, leaves my property, and we never see each other again. But when you're dealing with entitled people backed by a performative activist with a smartphone, nothing is ever simple. The crew arrived at 10 in the morning. Sloan immediately started her narration. "We are here documenting the ongoing economic violence being perpetrated by a toxic male." Tyler tried to take charge, introducing himself to the movers as the man of the house and explaining that they would be taking some additional furniture beyond what was on the list. The head mover, a no-nonsense guy named Hank, just looked at Brad and asked, "Is this clown authorized to make decisions?" Brad confirmed that only items on the pre-approved inventory could be removed. Tyler's face turned bright red. "This is ridiculous. Jessica has lived here for years." Sloan filmed Tyler's little speech. "This is exactly what we're talking about, the system deciding what women deserve." That's when Jessica started her act. She walked through the loft, pointing at everything as if she were leading an estate auction. "This bookshelf was chosen specifically for my art encyclopedias. This desk was for my thesis work." Hank wasn't having it. "Ma'am, if it's not on my list, it's not leaving this floor." Sloan stuck her phone in Hank's face. "Sir, are you aware that you are participating in economic violence?" Hank stared at her flatly. "Ma'am, you need to back up before I call the police for harassment." Courtney decided to chime in. "This is theft. You are stealing from a woman who gave 6 years of her life to this man." "6 years of her life?" I replied. "You mean 6 years that I fully financed?" Sloan swung her phone toward me. "There he is, the abuser himself." "I'm not destroying anything," I said calmly. "I'm collecting a legitimate debt and protecting my assets." "There are no debts in love," Sloan shouted at her phone. "Relationships aren't transactional." "You're right," I replied. "Love isn't transactional. But loans are. That's literally the definition of a loan." Tyler stepped forward as if to intimidate me. He was maybe 5 feet 8 inches tall and had clearly never been in a physical altercation in his life. "You need to back off and let us handle this." I almost laughed. "Handle what? You can't even handle your own car lease, according to your credit report." Yes, I had run a background check on Tyler. A 580 FICO score, 3 late payments on his leased Audi in the last 6 months, and maxed out credit cards. Sloan was practically hyperventilating. "You ran his credit? That's stalking." "It's public record if you know where to look," I replied. "And you, Tyler, are a liability. You're a predator," she shrieked. That's when Jessica completely lost it. She started screaming that I was destroying her life out of spite, and that Tyler was twice the man I'd ever be. She grabbed the custom bookshelf and tried to drag it toward the door. Hank stepped in. Jessica's credit was now flagged with an unpaid debt of $105,000. She couldn't get a lease, a car loan, or even a decent credit card. Tyler, it turned out, was living in a studio apartment and driving a car that was days away from repossession. His developer lifestyle was entirely fictional. When Jessica moved in with him, his landlord immediately served them a notice to quit for violating the single occupancy clause in his lease. The drama in the local art community reached another level when Jessica started telling people I was holding her hostage with a fraudulent lawsuit. But Mr. Henderson had been proactive. He sent copies of all the promissory notes to her former internship supervisor and the museum board, along with a formal notice that any defamatory statements would result in further litigation. Her reputation in the local art scene was crumbling. Gallery directors were warning each other about the former intern who creates drama and has massive legal liabilities. A week later, I stopped by an exhibition sponsored by one of my logistics clients. I wasn't there to start trouble. I just genuinely liked the artist's work. But as soon as I walked in, there she was. Jessica, standing under some abstract steel sculpture, laughing too loudly. It was awkward for her. A curator I knew gave me a nod and whispered, "Thanks for the heads up on the situation. That could have been a PR disaster for us." And then, as if on cue, Sloan materialized from behind a pillar like a bad plot twist. "What are you doing here?" she hissed. "Enjoying the culture," I replied. "You should try it sometime. You're not welcome here. Neither is fraud. Yet here you are, still talking." She looked around. A couple of wealthy donors were clearly watching the scene. No live stream this time, no phone in hand, just tense silence under the gallery lights. I stayed for another 10 minutes, complimented the artist, and chatted with a few normal people. As I left, I saw Jessica laughing a little harder for no one in particular, as if she were still trying to sell an illusion. But the gallery crowd wasn't buying it anymore. Sloan's activism backfired spectacularly. Her live streams were flagged for harassment, her Instagram account was suspended, and someone posted her parents' home address online with a comment about rich kids pretending to be oppressed. Her parents apparently had a stern talk with her about the family image and cut off her allowance. The final nail in the coffin was when Courtney tried to start a GoFundMe for Jessica's recovery fund. It raised $180 before someone flagged it for violating terms of service. Sloan shared it with a long caption about community mutual aid, but even her grad school classmates saw through the grift. She eventually switched her academic program after her department had expressed concerns about her professional judgment and online conduct. The debt collection continues. Mr. Henderson set up automatic reporting to the credit bureaus, so every month, Jessica's score drops a little more. She'll either have to pay it one day or declare Chapter 7 bankruptcy, which would ruin any chance of working in the administrative side of the art world. 3 months later, I thought the whole mess was finally over. I had moved back into my own place and was focusing on work. Then came the final showdown. It was a Friday night. Caleb was over, and we were playing Call of Duty when the doorbell rang around 9 in the evening. Buster immediately started barking his head off. I looked through the peephole. Jessica. She looked exhausted, like the city had chewed her up and spit her out. It's your ex, I told Caleb. No way. Let her in. I want to see this train wreck. I opened the door, and Jessica immediately pushed past me into the foyer as if she still lived there. We need to talk, she yelled. You've ruined my entire life. You need to leave. We have nothing to discuss. I'm homeless because of you. Tyler dumped me when he realized he couldn't use my credit. My sister won't let me stay with her anymore because her boyfriend hates the drama. I'm living out of my rental car. Caleb paused the game and turned around on the couch. Oh damn, primetime drama. Jessica spun on him, furious. This isn't funny. Your friend destroyed my life over money after I gave him 6 years. Caleb shot back. So what's the problem? The problem is he's forcing me to pay him back. Over $100,000. You should have thought of that before you signed the contracts, I said calmly. I never thought we would break up. Those were just formalities. I loved you. And then you dumped me via text for another guy. Choices have outcomes. That's when she completely exploded. She started screaming about how Tyler had left when the eviction notice came, how Courtney only let her crash for a week, how Sloan wasn't answering her texts anymore. You turned everyone against me. My credit is ruined. No landlord will look at my application. You tried to steal furniture and accused me of abuse, I replied. Caleb was loving it. Your ex is having a meltdown because she just discovered that reality exists. Shut up. This is between me and him. Actually, this is my house, and you're trespassing, I said. You need to leave. I'm not leaving until you forgive the debt. I can't pay it back. I'm working at a Starbucks. That's when Caleb pulled out his phone. Okay, this is getting unsafe. Hello, 911. Yes, hi? There's an intruder in my friend's house. She's screaming, refusing to leave, and acting erratic. Jessica's eyes went wide. You called the cops? The police arrived about 10 minutes later. 2 officers who had clearly dealt with domestic disturbances before. What's the situation here? The first one asked. This woman is my ex-fiancée, I explained calmly. She entered my home without permission and is refusing to vacate. I'm not making a scene, Jessica yelled, immediately proving the opposite. The second officer turned to her. Ma'am, you need to lower your voice. Were you invited inside? I lived here. Do you live here now, ma'am? Is your name on the deed or lease? No, but. Then you need to leave. This is trespassing. But he's ruining my financial life. Caleb couldn't help himself. Officer, she dumped him over text after 6 years, then wanted to keep everything he paid for. Now she's mad he's collecting on his loans. Ma'am, you need to step outside now, or we will have to escort you. This isn't fair. I have nowhere to go. That's not a police matter, the first officer replied. You have 2 choices. Leave voluntarily or be detained for criminal trespass. Fine, but this isn't over. I'll find a way to fight this. As the cops escorted her to the driveway, she screamed back. You're a monster. The door closed. Caleb let out a phew. No one said anything for a second. We just unpaused the game. That's the most entertaining Friday night I've had in years, he muttered. Your ex just got escorted out like a rowdy patron at a dive bar. The next morning, I went to the county courthouse and filed for a temporary restraining order, citing the trespassing, refusal to leave, and her erratic behavior. The judge granted it without hesitation. Jessica now has to stay at least 100 yards away from me, my home, and my office. If she violates it, she goes to jail. Do I feel bad about how it all ended? Not in the slightest. She made her choices, and she has to live with the consequences. The following weekend, Caleb came over with a six-pack and an idea. You know what we need to celebrate? He said, gesturing to the garage. A victory lap. Want to take the Impala out? Hell yeah. 20 minutes later, we pulled the cover off the 1967 Chevy Impala. She was as beautiful as ever. Caleb got in the passenger seat, Buster hopped in the back, and I turned the key. The V8 rumbled to life, shaking the garage walls. As we pulled onto the main road, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Simple, uncomplicated happiness. No drama, no contracts, no entitled people demanding what they hadn't earned. You know, Caleb said, shouting over the engine. 6 months ago, you were engaged to someone who wanted you to sell this car. Now you're free to drive it whenever you want. That's not just dodging a bullet, man. That's dodging an entire drone strike. He was right. If I had married Jessica, the Impala would probably be gone, sold for something practical, eco-friendly, and soul-crushingly boring. Instead, here she was, safe in my garage, ready for the next adventure. Comment. Sometimes life forces us to make hard choices to protect our well-being. It reminds us that setting firm boundaries is not about being cruel, but about having enough self-respect to walk away from toxic situations. True generosity should never be taken for granted, and a healthy relationship is built on mutual appreciation rather than one-sided expectations. When we face betrayal or sudden loss, the strongest response is often to stay calm and focus on rebuilding our stability. Taking responsibility for our actions is the foundation of adulthood, and running from consequences only creates more chaos. We also see how vital loyal friends and simple joys are in keeping us grounded during life's storms. Healing is not just about time passing, but about actively choosing to reclaim the parts of yourself you may have compromised. There is a unique kind of freedom in letting go of what no longer serves you and moving forward into a future you design. I hope this narrative encourages you to value your worth and stand firm in your principles. You deserve a life filled with genuine respect and peace of mind. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.